You made it halfway up the stairs and had to stop. Not because you tripped, not because you were carrying anything heavy. You stopped because your heart was hammering in your chest like it was trying to break through your ribs, your breath was coming in shallow, useless pulls, and your legs had turned into wet concrete. You stood there, one hand on the railing, waiting for it to pass. And while you waited, a thought crept in that you have been trying to silence for months. What is happening to me? You used to hike on weekends. You used to mow the lawn without thinking about it. You used to chase your grandchildren around the yard and feel alive doing it. Now, a single flight of stairs has become a biological event. And the cruelest part is that you have been doing everything right. You are taking your medications. You are watching your diet. You may even be swallowing one of those CoQ10 supplements your pharmacist or a wellness article recommended. You are trying, and your body is still betraying you. Here is what nobody has told you. The exhaustion you are experiencing is not laziness. It is not simply aging. It is not a motivation problem. It is a biological emergency happening at the cellular level inside your heart muscle right now, and the cholesterol medication sitting in your medicine cabinet may be the single most aggressive accelerant of that emergency in your daily life. And the CoQ10 you are taking to compensate? The clinical data will show you something that will make you furious at every supplement company that has ever sold it to you. Stay with me, because the first curiosity gap I am going to leave open for you right now is this. What you are swallowing is not being absorbed by your heart, not even close. The second gap is this. There is a fully converted, pre-activated molecule that bypasses the broken biological step entirely, and paired with a specific polyphenol compound, it can restore cardiac energy output in ways that standard CoQ10 is biologically incapable of achieving. I am going to give you the exact protocol before this video ends. But first, you need to understand what is actually breaking down inside you. Your heart is the most energy-demanding organ in the human body. It does not get to rest. It does not take breaks. From the moment you were born until the moment you die, it contracts and releases approximately 100,000 times every single day. Over the course of a lifetime, that is more than 3 billion beats, all powered by a continuous, uninterrupted supply of cellular energy called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And where does that ATP come from? It comes from structures inside every single cardiac cell called mitochondria. These are the cellular power plants, and the heart muscle contains more mitochondria per cell than virtually any other tissue in the body because the demand never stops. Now think of your heart like a high-performance car engine. That engine requires a precisely timed electrical spark to ignite combustion in each cylinder. Without the spark, the fuel just sits there. The engine labors, the cylinders misfire, the car sputters and struggles on hills it used to climb effortlessly. Coenzyme Q10, abbreviated CoQ10, is that spark. It is the molecule that sits inside the mitochondrial membrane and physically transfers the electrons that drive ATP production. Without adequate CoQ10 embedded in your mitochondria, those cellular power plants cannot complete the energy cycle. The fuel, meaning glucose and fatty acids, arrives at the mitochondria, but the conversion to usable ATP stalls. Your heart muscle is working, but it is working inefficiently, straining to generate the force it needs to push blood through your body, which is precisely why a flight of stairs now leaves you breathless and shaking. Here is where the biological story darkens considerably. After the age of 50, your body's natural synthesis of CoQ10 begins a steep and accelerating decline. Research published in the Mitochondrial Journal documented that cardiac CoQ10 concentrations drop by approximately 40% between the ages of 40 and 80. The mitochondria are not being destroyed overnight. They are being progressively starved of the one molecule they cannot function without. But there is a second force compounding this depletion, and this one is entirely man-made. If you are taking a statin medication, a drug prescribed to tens of millions of older adults to manage cholesterol, you are taking a drug that works by blocking an enzyme pathway called the mevalonate pathway. Statins are effective at lowering cholesterol because this pathway produces cholesterol, but that same pathway also produces CoQ10. Statins do not selectively block cholesterol synthesis. They block the entire upstream pathway, which means every day you take that pill, you are systematically dismantling your body's ability to manufacture the spark plugs your mitochondria depend on. The sparks are not just fading with age, they are being chemically extracted. And the result is what researchers have termed myocardial energy depletion, a state where the heart muscle is chronically underfueled, working harder for proportionally less output and degrading with every passing month. Now, I need to talk to you about CoQ10 supplements, because this is where the industry has been collecting your money while delivering almost nothing to your heart cells. Walk into any pharmacy, any health food store, or click on any supplement website, and what you will find on the shelf is a product labeled CoQ10. The molecule inside those capsules is called ubiquinone. Ubiquinone is the oxidized, inactive form of CoQ10. It is not the form your mitochondria actually use. Before ubiquinone can do anything productive inside a cardiac cell, your liver must chemically reduce it through a biochemical conversion process, transforming it into the active form called ubiquinol. In a young, healthy body with optimal liver enzyme activity, this conversion happens with reasonable efficiency. But here is the number that every CoQ10 manufacturer is hoping you never see. After the age of 50, the liver's capacity to perform this conversion drops by more than 70%. More than 70%. That means for every 100 milligrams of standard ubiquinone you swallow, your aging liver is converting fewer than 30 milligrams into the form your heart can actually absorb and use. The rest of it? It circulates incompletely reduced, gets metabolized, and is excreted. You have been paying premium prices for a molecule that your biology can no longer process, delivered to an organ that is already starving, and most of it is flowing straight out of your body without ever reaching a single cardiac mitochondrion. There is a study published in the journal Biofactors that measured plasma CoQ10 levels in elderly subjects after supplementing with standard ubiquinone versus the active ubiquinol form. The ubiquinol group demonstrated plasma concentrations that were, depending on the dose, anywhere from 4 to 8 times higher than those achieved with equivalent doses of ubiquinone. That is not a marginal improvement. That is not a small clinical footnote. That is a biological gulf between a supplement that functions and one that is, for all practical cardiovascular purposes, inert inside an aging body. Every cheap CoQ10 product on the shelf is sold to people who are physiologically incapable of activating it, and the supplement companies know this. The ingredient costs less to manufacture, the label looks identical to the consumer, and the profit margins are protected. This is not incompetence. This is a business model built on your biological ignorance. Now I am going to tell you what works, and I am going to explain precisely why it works at the molecular level, because I want you to be able to recognize the difference in your own body when you make this shift. The first compound in the cardiac ignition protocol is pure ubiquinol, not ubiquinone, with a marketing claim on the front of the bottle. Pure, confirmed ubiquinol, the already reduced, fully active, lipid-soluble form of CoQ10. When ubiquinol enters your digestive system, it requires no hepatic conversion. Your liver does not need to touch it. It passes through the gut wall via lipid-mediated absorption, enters the bloodstream in its active state, and is carried directly into cardiac cell membranes, where it embeds into the mitochondrial inner membrane and immediately begins facilitating electron transfer. The spark plugs are not delivered as raw materials that need to be assembled. They arrive fully functional and ready to ignite. ATP production in your cardiac mitochondria begins to recover, the mechanical efficiency of your heart muscle improves, and the subjective experience, which is what you will notice, is a gradual but measurable reduction in effort for the same physical task. The second compound is trans-resveratrol, and I want you to understand why this is not a luxury addition but a biological necessity when you are rebuilding cardiac function. The interior surface of every blood vessel in your body is lined with a single cell-thick layer called the endothelium. This lining is not just passive plumbing. It produces nitric oxide, regulates inflammatory responses, controls vascular tone, and determines how efficiently blood flows from your heart to every tissue that needs it. In the aging cardiovascular system, particularly in individuals with statin-related mitochondrial stress. This endothelial layer becomes inflamed, thickened, and functionally impaired. Your heart could recover its energy output through ubiquinol, but if the blood vessels downstream are narrowed and inflamed, the improved pumping cannot translate into improved circulation. You are increasing the engine's power, but running it through a clogged transmission. Trans-resveratrol, specifically the trans isomer, which is the biologically active configuration, activates a protein called SIRT1, a longevity-associated deacetylase enzyme that governs endothelial repair and the expression of nitric oxide synthase. Multiple peer-reviewed studies, including research published in the American Journal of Cardiology and the European Heart Journal, have demonstrated that trans-resveratrol supplementation significantly improves endothelial function, reduces oxidative stress in vascular tissue, and enhances nitric oxide bioavailability in adults with impaired cardiovascular function. It is simultaneously repairing the pipes while ubiquinol restores the pump. When these two compounds work together inside an aging cardiovascular system, the synergy is not additive, it is multiplicative. The cardiac ignition protocol is specific, and precision matters here. Every morning, immediately after breakfast, you take 200 milligrams of pure ubiquinol, not ubiquinone. The label must specifically state ubiquinol, and if possible, look for products using the CoQ10 trademark, as this is the most clinically validated and purity-controlled source of ubiquinol available. Simultaneously, you take 250 milligrams of trans-resveratrol. Again, confirm the trans prefix. Cis-resveratrol is largely biologically inactive. You want the trans isomer. The reason you take both compounds after breakfast and not on an empty stomach is critical. Ubiquinol is fat-soluble, meaning its absorption is dramatically enhanced when dietary fats are present in the intestinal environment. A meal that includes eggs, avocado, olive oil, or any healthy fat source creates the lipid matrix that pulls ubiquinol through the gut wall efficiently. Without fat in the meal, a significant fraction of your ubiquinol will pass through unabsorbed regardless of how high quality the product is. Now the third component, and this is the one that elevates the protocol from effective to extraordinary. You must include 5 milligrams of biopurine, which is a standardized extract of piperine derived from black pepper. Piperine has been extensively studied for its impact on bioavailability of fat-soluble and polyphenolic compounds. It works by inhibiting specific intestinal enzymes and efflux transporters, particularly P-glycoprotein and certain CYP450 enzymes, that would otherwise intercept and break down your ubiquinol and resveratrol before they reach systemic circulation. Published research has demonstrated that piperine co-administration increases the bioavailability of CoQ10 compounds by approximately 30% and significantly enhances polyphenol absorption as well. Biopurine is the metabolic gatekeeper that keeps the door open long enough for your cardiac ignition compounds to flood into your bloodstream intact. Without it, you are leaving a measurable fraction of your investment on the intestinal floor. With it, you are maximizing cardiac delivery with every single dose. The timing window matters. Take all three compounds together at breakfast every morning without exception. Consistency is not optional here. Mitochondrial recovery is a cumulative biological process. You are not taking a stimulant that produces an immediate response and then fades. You are slowly restoring the structural energy infrastructure of your cardiac cells, and that process requires sustained, daily delivery of these compounds over a minimum of 2 weeks before the most significant measurable changes become apparent. This brings me to the challenge I am issuing to you today. I am calling it the 1-4 Day Heart Power Challenge, and I want you to start it tomorrow morning. Here is what you do. Tonight, open your supplement cabinet and remove the standard ubiquinone you have been taking. Retire it. It is not doing what your heart needs. Tomorrow morning, begin the cardiac ignition protocol exactly as I described. 200 milligrams of pure ubiquinol, 250 milligrams of trans-resveratrol, and 5 milligrams of biopurine, taken together immediately after a fat-containing breakfast. Before you take your first dose, I want you to record 2 baseline numbers. First, your resting heart rate first thing in the morning before you get out of bed, measured for 60 seconds. Second, your perceived exertion on a flight of stairs, rated on a simple personal scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is what you currently feel. Write these numbers down with the date. On day 7, measure again. On day 14, measure again. What you are tracking is your mitochondrial recovery in real time. As ubiquinol saturates your cardiac cell membranes and begins restoring ATP production efficiency, your resting heart rate will begin to normalize because the heart does not need to work as hard to maintain circulation. Your stair exertion rating will drop because the cardiac muscle is generating energy more efficiently. These are not placebo effects. These are the measurable signatures of cellular energy restoration in the most vital muscle in your body. Share this video with someone you love who is on a statin. Share it with someone who tells you they are exhausted all the time and cannot figure out why. You are not sharing a wellness tip. You are potentially intervening in a silent biological crisis that their doctor has not explained and that their supplement shelf has not solved. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the video coming next week is going to expose something about a common breakfast food that is aggressively calcifying your coronary arteries from the inside, and the mechanism involves a protein your body is producing in response to a nutrient deficiency that virtually every adult over 50 has, but almost none have been told to test. The clinical data on this one is going to stop you mid-bite, and you do not want to